Hey y'all, welcome back to Homemade Simple. If we've not met before, I'm Lori. I'm really glad that you're here today. I have an exciting finish to the video that we started last week on helping you feed your family for just $10 a day. Recipes that we can put on the table for our families for just a few dollars every single meal, making our meal budget $70 for the week. I think that is a really good place for us to try to land. $50 a week is really cutting it close, and you're never going to be able to build up a pantry. But if you are able to do maybe $70 to $100 a week, I think that you can find some good success there. So I'm going to go through my recipe meal plan this week, show you a couple of good recipes that we can make for our families that are not only really nutritious and easy to make, but also taste pretty good too if you can get your family to give them a try. Before we start talking about the recipes that I want to share with you this week, let's do a little bit of a review from the video last week. If you weren't able to see last week's video quite yet, I will link that down in the description box below. So while I was at Walmart, I did try to give you some pointers about saving as much money as you can while you're there at the store. But I also dove into some of the specifics for this week's meal plan and some of the decisions that I was making to try to purchase all of the ingredients for this meal plan for as little as possible. So now let's talk about how we can use these ingredients that I purchased at the grocery store in making meals for our family that will not only be nutritious and filling, but hopefully they will enjoy as well. I want to start with breakfast, and for this meal plan, I planned on making some homemade yogurt and granola. It is super easy to make your own homemade yogurt and not only have a cheaper option, but also avoid a lot of the additives that are placed in normal yogurt that you find at the store. Super simple and easy. I'm going to start with 4 cups of milk. You can double or even triple this recipe. It works just the same. I'm going to heat my milk to a temperature right around 180 degrees. Don't go away. Make sure that you keep stirring your milk so that it doesn't burn on the bottom. That is something that will happen quickly, so keep your eye out for that. And once it gets to 180 degrees, I'm going to allow the milk to cool down to around 115. Add 2 tablespoons of plain yogurt. You can use Greek or regular yogurt, just as long as it's only plain, no flavor. I'm going to stir that in as well as I can, and then I'm going to turn the light on in my oven. Put this yogurt mixture into the oven and allow it to incubate for probably 8 to 12 hours. The longer that you allow for the yogurt to incubate in a warm but not hot environment, it's going to thicken up, and it's also going to sour more and more as more time goes on. After you get it incubated to the thickness and the sourness that you're looking for, put it in a mason jar, put it in your refrigerator, and it will be good to go for probably about a month. You can use store-bought milk, goat milk, raw cow milk. Any kind of milk is going to work with this. Now, I haven't tried it with plant-based milks. If someone knows if that works, please let me know in the comments below. Okay, now let's move on to making some granola. Granola could not be simpler, and it's also so delicious. I'm going to start with 2 cups of old-fashioned oats, and to that I'm going to add 1/4 cup of maple syrup. You could also use honey, and I'm going to use 1/4 cup of oil. I have sunflower oil. It's not as strong tasting as olive oil. You could also use coconut oil. And then I'm going to add about 1/2 cup of those sliced almonds that we purchased at Walmart. I'm going to mix everything together and slide it out onto a lined cookie sheet. I have my oven preheating to 325 degrees Fahrenheit, and after I get all of the granola spread out as much as I can, I will bake it for 10 minutes and then stir it. Stirring your granola every 5 minutes or so is really the key to making it taste as good as possible. After it bakes for a total of probably 25 minutes or so, you'll know when it's done when it starts really turning golden brown. Do not allow it to stay in there too long. You don't want it to burn. But I'm going to allow it to cool on the counter, and then I'm going to add it to an airtight container. Put it in your pantry. It will last for probably a week or so if you don't eat it quicker than that. This is a really good breakfast, having yogurt and granola that you have made yourself, and top it with frozen blueberries or strawberries, even a banana. This is going to be a delicious and super nutritious meal for getting your day started. Also, we have the ingredients for a regular cup of oatmeal in the morning. Both of those options are really good to get your day started with a healthy and nutritious breakfast on a perfectly low budget. I want to take a minute to thank AMZCHEF for sponsoring today's video. I'm really excited about opening up this new induction cooktop. I have been cooking with propane gas as long as we've lived here, and I really enjoy cooking with gas, but there are some huge advantages to having an additional cooktop and an electric option for cooking our meals. So I'm really excited to put this cooktop to use. It's really easy to put together. I just slid it out of the box, put the feet on the bottom, and we were ready to go. This induction cooktop is a 2-burner option. You can either put it into your countertop or you can use it as a portable option as well. And it is really good to cook your meals thoroughly and quickly. I used my iron skillets that I use every single day with absolutely no problem. You'll also see later in the video that I used my stainless steel pot. That worked well. You also can use enameled cookware, which makes it perfect for the Dutch oven that I have. And this induction cooktop has made cooking so simple and easy this week. I have really had good success. There was just a slight learning curve for me going from a gas stove to using this electric induction cooktop, but I've picked it up really quickly and everything turned out really good. So thank you to AMZCHEF for sponsoring today's video. I'm going to link this induction cooktop right in the description box below. It will be the first link that you see. I hope that you will check it out because I really think that you will be able to benefit from having your own induction cooktop at your home. It's perfect if you have an apartment or a bed and breakfast. It would be really great to take on a camping trip, even tailgating. This would be a perfect addition to any outdoor activity where you are going to need to cook your food. Now let's get on to cooking our first dinner meal, which is sausage and biscuits with a little bit of gravy. After a lot of trial runs and a lot of mess ups and mistakes, I have found a really good and easy way to make homemade biscuits taste really good and come out of the oven looking delicious. I'm going to start with 2 cups of flour, and I'm going to add to that 2.5 teaspoons of baking powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then I'm going to mix that together and add 8 tablespoons of cubed butter. It's really important that this butter is cold from the refrigerator and that you go ahead and chop it up before you put it into the flour mixture. Use a pastry blender to blend the butter into the biscuit dough until it is nice and crumbly. Make a little well in the middle of your bowl and pour in 3/4 cup of milk. A lot of people will roll out their dough and use a biscuit cutter. We are homestead chefs here, so I do not take the extra time to roll out my biscuit dough unless it is for a super special occasion. So after I get my dough kneaded pretty well, you don't want to over knead it, but I kneaded it for a few minutes, got it to the right consistency, and then I'm just going to pat my biscuits out into a round shape and put them on the baking mat. That's really good enough for me. If you want to take the extra step of rolling your dough out, that's perfectly fine, and your biscuits will probably turn out much more beautiful than mine did. I realized that we didn't buy any of these items at the store today except for the milk, but these are all staple items that we normally should just keep a stock of in our pantry. If you do not have them this week, that's okay. There was still $7 of buffer in our budget so that we will have plenty to be able to buy the pantry staples that we need every single week to make sure that our pantry is good and stocked for all of our cooking needs. So I will put all of the ingredients, all of the recipes in the description box below. You can check all of that. I will write out all of the ingredients that I used, and that way if you do not have them in your pantry, you can be sure to pick them up when you go to the store this week. This sausage cooked up really quick thanks to my new induction cooktop. I'm going to pull the sausage out and we're going to make our gravy while our biscuits are cooking. The sausage was really lean, which is unusual for a great value sausage, but that's okay because I have some grease that I have put away. If you don't keep your grease, I highly recommend it. It's just a really inexpensive way of flavoring your dishes and making sure that you have some cooking oil available at no cost or no extra cost. That's probably, that's not even a tablespoon of oil. I'm gonna melt this in the pan, and while that's heating, I'm going to mix up 1/2 cup of flour and 1.5 cups of milk. I'm gonna whisk that. I'm just gonna whisk it constantly until it thickens up, and then the gravy will be ready. Okay, the biscuits are nice and done. I'm gonna cut one on the plate. Just spoon the gravy on top. And then I'm gonna take my sausage and crumble it on top of the biscuit and gravy. I also always try to at least have 1 serving of either fruits or vegetables with each meal. So here's our first meal of our extreme grocery budget this week. I hope that you will give it a try and let me know what you think about these yummy biscuits. Our next meal is going to be a smoked sausage and lentil soup recipe that was super quick and easy to put together and tasted a lot better than I expected. I'm gonna start by chopping up my smoked sausage, and also I'm gonna use 1/2 of an onion. I'm gonna chop those up first, heat those up in the pot, and then add all of the rest of the soup ingredients. Sausage is browning, let's talk a little bit about being resourceful and using that resourcefulness to be able to boost up our grocery budget. So for instance, these onion scraps usually would just be thrown in the garbage and nobody would think a second thought about it. But we can take even these crumbly peels, put them in a freezer baggie, put it in the freezer, and continually add to it when you have vegetable scraps that you're not able to cook with, but you don't want to throw away either. So for instance, when you're peeling carrots or peeling potatoes, if there's any part of, say, a head of broccoli that you're not going to use, go ahead and put it in your freezer bag, and once it is full, put it in a pot, fill it with water, and allow it to simmer for, let's say, 3 to 4 hours. You have just taken literal trash and turned it into vegetable broth that Walmart is happy to charge you $2 or $3 for. So being resourceful with the things that we have already purchased and are already buying from the grocery store is really a good way to be able to use all of that money to the best of its ability. Okay, I think this sausage is getting nice and brown. Let's go ahead and add all of the ingredients. Okay, I'm going to add 1 large can petite diced tomatoes. I'm gonna add 1 can of carrots. I'm not gonna drain them because I do not have any vegetable broth. So I'm going to allow the carrot juice to be some of our flavoring. I'm gonna add 1 can of lentils. They didn't have any dried lentils at Walmart. I guess we're not really a lentil friendly environment, but I bought 2 cans. I'm gonna see if I need to, but I don't want to overdo it, so I might just use those for something else. I'm gonna mix all this together, and for my seasoning, I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1 tablespoon of Italian seasoning. I'm just gonna allow this to simmer on medium heat, and probably in 30 minutes or so, we'll be ready to eat. Okay, it's all cooked up. It's been simmering for about 25 minutes. Honestly, I'm not sure my family is gonna be sold on this. So I'm gonna give it a taste. When you are doing budgets, you're just gonna have to take risks. This might be a risk that my family is not willing to take. Let me let this cool off and I will let you know how it tastes. It's still hot, but it's really good. You could really easily make some rice for this to go on top of. So put the rice in the bottom of the bowl and then put this on top. But this soup is good. Like, this is try-worthy. So for, let's see, the kielbasa sausage was $3.50. The carrots were $1. The lentils were around $1. And the tomatoes were $1.50. So that's 5, 6, 7 for around $7. This is a really nice and hearty dinner. So even if you don't use the rice, this has got a lot of protein, which is really important in these budget meals, that you have plenty of protein and not a lot of fluff. All of the things that you put into the meal need to be hearty and valuable. This is a really good dish. I hope that you and your family will give it a try. Let me know in the comments what you think about it when you try it, and if you have any suggestions about maybe making it a little heartier or switching it up just a little bit, let me know your ideas down below. Next up, we're going to make our own pizza crust and supreme pizza. This is really super easy, but it is a total family win. I'm gonna start by adding 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast. If you buy the packets, that's just 1 packet. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of sugar and 3/4 cup of warm water. You don't want it boiling hot. You don't want it tepid either. Just probably 115 degrees. That's perfect. Allow that to sit for just a little bit, and then I'm gonna add 2 cups of all-purpose flour, a teaspoon of salt, and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. I'm gonna mix all of this together and then get it out on my counter and knead it for a bit. You don't want to over knead it, so just until it is a good pizza dough consistency. It might take you about 5 minutes to knead it. I'm going to put it into a greased bowl and allow it to rise for about 2 to 3 hours in a nice warm place. This is also a good use for your oven with the oven light on. That's a nice warm environment, especially when it's winter and it's hard to find a warm enough spot in your kitchen. After a couple of hours though in the oven with the light on, this dough rose nicely. So I'm gonna roll it back out onto the kitchen counter. I'm going to make mine a thin crust, but you can make yours as thin or as thick as you would like. Pizza sauce. I'm going to use 1 cup of tomato sauce, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 teaspoon of sugar, and a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. I'm just going to mix all of that together, and then I'm going to bring my pizza dough over. The next time I do this, I will definitely lay it out on a piece of parchment paper. That will make transferring it from the kitchen counter onto the baking sheet much easier. But that was a lesson that I had to learn the hard way this time, so make sure that you put a piece of parchment down on your counter before you add all of the ingredients to your pizza crust. I'm going to spread the pizza sauce onto the crust, and then I'm going to add plenty of mozzarella cheese. I think this ended up probably being about 3 cups of cheese. And then I cooked up some sausage. I added that and some pepperoni that I had left over from a birthday party. So you can just use whatever ingredients you have on hand to make this pizza however you would like. I used some diced peppers and onions, baked it in a 450-degree oven for about 15 minutes. Keep a good check on it, make sure it doesn't burn. I hope your family enjoys this delicious, frugal-friendly pizza recipe. I think pizza might be my very favorite food. This next recipe of hearty cabbage stew is near and dear to my heart. It is a recipe that I took from my mom, made a couple of adjustments to it to make it a little more budget friendly for this week's meal plan. It's delicious. I hope that you will give it a try. I'm going to start by browning the ground turkey. You can use any kind of ground meat in this recipe, but the beef was just really over the budget. I chose to use ground turkey instead. I also chopped up 1/4 of a bell pepper and 1/4 of an onion. After the meat is good and browned, I'm going to add 1 large can of diced tomatoes, 1 drained can of kidney beans, the extra tomato sauce that I had left over from the pizza, and 1 cup of water. I'm also going to add a 1/2 head of cabbage that I have chopped up into small pieces. I'm going to mix all of that together and then add 1 teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm going to allow this to simmer on the cooktop for about 30 minutes or so until the cabbage is nice and tender. I know that this might sound like an unusual dish, but I think that if you give it a try, you will agree that it is so homey of a flavor and it is going to be a family favorite. Next up is a Tex-Mex quinoa chili. I'm going to take 1 cup of quinoa. I've heard that the tri-colored quinoa is the best flavored. That's what I got. I rinsed it first, cooked it according to the package directions, and once it was all nice and fluffy, I took a large can of diced tomatoes, 1 can of corn, and a can of black beans. I'm going to give that a good stir, and I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of cumin and a tablespoon of chili powder, a teaspoon, maybe 2 of garlic powder, and allow this to simmer for about 30 minutes. I'm going to top it with some cheese and sour cream. It really was good and filling and delicious, and I hope that you will give it a try. We are almost to the end of our week and our meal plan, so I am noticing that I made a mistake when I was at the grocery store with the quantity of items that I purchased. I didn't purchase enough diced tomatoes for me to have what I needed for these stuffed cabbage rolls, and so I'm gonna have to improvise. I will make an adjustment on the grocery list down in the description box so that you won't encounter this same issue, but I had some fresh tomatoes that need to be used up anyway, so this really is a win-win for my house, but sort of a mess up on the grocery budget that I had shown y'all last week and then at the beginning of this week. So again, here a lot of mistakes get made. This is real life, and sometimes I make a goof up on the grocery list and the things that I buy. It's not uncommon for me to have somebody need to pick up something on the way home so that I will have everything that I need. Fortunately, today I did have all of the things that I needed, but I just miscalculated on the grocery list, which would be for your benefit and knowing all of the items that you need for this particular meal plan. I'm going to go ahead and fix my mistake by hand chopping these tomatoes that needed to be used anyway, and then we will get on to making our stuffed cabbage rolls. Just as an aside, I've never made stuffed cabbage rolls. I just think that I had heard of them, and so I did a little bit of research and tried to figure out how to make them, so we'll see how that goes. Cooked 1 cup of rice in the microwave, and I also browned 1 pound of ground chicken. I'm going to add those ingredients together, and then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of salt, a half teaspoon of ground mustard, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. I'm going to stir all of that together, and then I'm going to move on to the cabbage. Now you can do this one of several ways. I tore the cabbage leaves off of the head of cabbage and then blanched the leaves. You can also just blanch the entire head and they will come off easier. I think that's probably a better way to go. And I also think that blanching it for a little bit longer would be better. So maybe keeping it in the water for maybe 5 minutes instead of the 2 that I did. I'm going to put the rice and chicken mixture into individual cabbage leaves, roll them up as well as I can. This is sort of an art that you learn as you go. After my cabbage leaves are stuffed, I'm going to take my tomatoes and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, a tablespoon of Italian seasoning, and a tablespoon of sugar. I'm going to mix that well, and then I'm going to pour this tomato mixture on top of the cabbage rolls. I think if I had to do this again, I would add 1/2 cup of water to the pan as well. I baked it for about an hour, maybe you might want to go as long as an hour and a half. Then I took it out of the oven, added some shredded cheese, and put it under the broiler. It really did come out really tasty. I've never had cabbage rolls before. It made me think of Dr. Seuss's Green Eggs and Ham, because when I tasted it, I thought, I really do like cabbage rolls. Sam, I am. We're almost done with all of our recipes. I have one more to make. It's a crustless quiche. I'm going to use our leftover sausage. We have about 1/2 pound left of that. I have some frozen spinach that I am thawing and then I'm going to drain. And also I'm going to saute some onions to give it a little extra flavor, add some cheese. This is going to be a super easy dinner, but it's also going to be super cheap and frugal. I'm going to start by adding about a tablespoon of olive oil to my pan and sauteing the onions for probably 5 minutes or so until they are browning and translucent. I'm going to add my drained and thawed spinach and cook that for another 5 minutes or so. While that's cooking for the last few minutes, I'm going to crack 8 eggs and add 1/2 cup of milk. Whisk that together really well, and then I'm going to add the sauteed onions and spinach to the bottom of a 9x9 baking dish. I'm going to add the sausage that I had left over from pizza night and add about 2 cups of cheese. I'm going to pour the eggs into the dish and bake it at 350 degrees for about 25 minutes until it's nice and browned on the top and set through. Adding a piece of fruit to this quiche makes it a really well-balanced meal that is full of protein and also really delicious. I hope that there were a couple of things that you were able to learn in this video that would help you be able to feed your family for just a little bit less every week, and maybe you can save tons of money throughout the year. I hope that you will leave all of your money saving tips down in the comments below. But before we close, I wanted to share with you a couple of adjustments that I would make if I had this same meal plan but had maybe $20 or $25 more to spend. I definitely would boost up my vegetables and fruits, so I probably would have bought 2 bags of apples, maybe a bag of oranges, and definitely I would have added probably 2 more bunches of bananas. Bananas are something that I can count on Lane to eat on a regular basis, and I feel good about him eating bananas instead of other kinds of packaged snacks that he would prefer to choose. I definitely would have purchased a few more cans of tomatoes and maybe even boosted up my pantry items. I did use a good bit of pantry items this week, and I know that you might not have all of those stored up and built up for yourself quite yet. So I did try to be mindful and give a little bit of extra wiggle room for anything that you might have needed to buy. But if I had had a couple of more dollars to spend on pantry items, I probably would have bought at least 1 pantry staple, like a sugar or a flour, something that I know I'm going to use on a regular basis and I don't ever want to run out of it. Any kind of good oil or butter that I could add to my pantry or to my refrigerator that's going to help me in the long run build better meals. Those are always really good ways to use a couple of extra dollars in the budget. I would love to hear all of the ways that you boost up your meal plan. If you are able to build up your pantry along, that's a really great way to be able to feed your family for less on a regular basis. So I hope that you will check out other videos on the channel helping you to build your pantry, and I also hope that you will share all of your tips down in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching today. I do hope that you will check out the link for the AMZ Induction Cooktop. I really did enjoy using that. It was nice to have it. Having a propane gas oven, sometimes our propane gets really low in the winter time, so I know that I'm going to rely heavily on this cooktop during the winter so that we will be able to keep our propane for heating the house instead of cooking our meals. I hope that you will check out that link down in the description box. It will be the first link down below, so make sure you check that out. Thank you to AMZCHEF for sponsoring today's video. Thank you for watching today's video. I hope that you have a wonderful week. I love you, and I will see you again next time.